Okay, what is up, YouTube? Here we go. Try like number 3 in going live on this pet series and OCD. So let's just dive right into like the situation of if you are a pet owner and you have OCD, there can be a lot going on beneath the surface. And in the event that you have, let's say, a dog and you're worried about your dog dying, even though there's no signs of age, sickness, poor health, those sorts of things, this episode is for you. So that is the anticipation, the anxiety that you're going to lose your pet when OCD is also trying to convince you that there are signs, there are worries, and sometimes you can just be flooded with worry for no reason. Okay, with that anticipation around your pet's death, you may do a lot of checking. You may do a lot of unnecessary vet visits, Googling for sure. And in all of these situations, the checking is making things worse for your OCD. And it's, ultimately not helping you enjoy the time that you have with your pet. It's very common to happen with pet owners. It's also another thing that can happen is you feel blinded to your pet's health issues. Like maybe you're worried that, or you're ignoring the fact that they have sicknesses, have injuries, and you are not wanting to accept that now is the time for them to go. So what tends to happen is OCD puts this like veil over you that leads you to believe things that are not true. And time again, no matter where you are in your pet ownership, when you're dealing with OCD, pay attention to the facts. Okay. And your feelings are not facts. And it can be very tricky because in the feeling of what if they die, I mean, it feels very frightening, very scary, and unsettling. But just because you are experiencing that feeling, that doesn't mean that it is a real thing that's happening right now. And a lot of times, people with these obsessive thoughts, they think, what if my pet gets sick suddenly? What if I miss signs of cancer or them being sick? Um, Now, with all the checking, it is, again, not doing you any favors. And the end result is that you could be grieving something that hasn't even happened yet. So you're missing out on the joy that you have with your pet right now because you're so focused on losing them in the future. And here's the thing, your worry doesn't protect you from future grief. It just steals your present joy. And the whole like what if scenario, what if this, what if that, you can't stay in the what ifs. You have to live in the what is. And it's very common with compulsions in this cycle to do a lot of Googling. Like maybe your dog is sleeping longer than they normally would. And so you're Googling possible diseases. And then you kind of think, okay, maybe it's nothing. And then you move on. But once you start to feed the OCD, like that stress level gets more intense, the compulsions can become more frequent. And so I encourage you to stick to the facts because it could be, right, that your dog is just tired. Maybe you spent your entire day in an anxiety spiral, and now you're in this situation where your brain has learned that the these thoughts that you're having of like, what if my dog dies, that they're dangerous and they need your immediate attention. And ultimately, it's creating suffering right now. Like you're worried about suffering in the future, but you're creating suffering for yourself now. All right. Here's the other thing. You can love your pet without obsessing over losing them. So here's a couple like mindset tips. Maybe you're feeling like, oh, I need to think ahead so I don't feel so surprised or I don't feel as hurt when I lose them. But on the flip side, if you're like trying to control your feelings, like you're not really allowing yourself that authenticity in the now. And then the other like mindset thing here is if you feel like if you worry enough, then you can prevent bad things from happening. But in reality, your worry doesn't change the outcome. It doesn't. Your worry consists of thoughts, and thoughts do not change what's happening outside. All right. So I encourage you, catch yourself when you're catastrophizing. So when you notice that you're going down the what if path, encourage yourself to come back to center and focus on the what is, and recognize that's a future thing that I don't need to deal with right now. Another tip, definitely resist the compulsions, whether that is delaying, skipping, or just decreasing. You don't need to check on your pet. You don't need to research things because doing any of that is just going to increase your anxiety. Now, here's what I'll say. When your pet is showing legitimate signs of something wrong, something not going well, make sure that whenever you go to Google or you call the vet that it is reasonable. Like there's more than enough indication to say like, yes, it's time that we call the vet. All right. And if you're someone who struggles in staying present, I encourage you pay attention to your 5 senses. Okay? With your 5 senses, that can help you be more present with your pet and be like checked in instead of checked out with the worry. And tip number 4 is uncertainty can be challenging for all of us. But with the uncertainty, there can be beautiful things that happen as well. So it's not always bad things happening in the uncertainty. And if you're someone who has already lost a pet and you are trying to continue that bond with them, I encourage you to keep simple, meaningful reminders, like maybe a photo, a collar, or maybe a blanket that they had. But don't stay stuck in creating like a shrine or have rituals or feeling like you can't change anything, like you can't get rid of their bowls or any of that stuff. Because you definitely do have permission to move forward with your life and still love and honor your pet, even if you don't keep their stuff hanging around the house. And overall, if you feel like your grief is too intense, even like after months, or your OCD spirals are constant, you can totally reach out for help. You can go to my website at valuedriventherapy.com and we can talk about how exposure response prevention or the inference-based cognitive behavioral therapy can help you in getting unstuck from these OCD spinouts or your grief. So today we talked about the fear and the anticipation of your pet death whenever you have OCD. We talked about these scenarios of what if they die and what that is costing you. And finally, we talked about how to love your pet without obsessing about losing them. So I encourage you, if you catch yourself in any of these thought spirals, use your 5 senses, stick to the facts, stick to the truth, and come back, redirect your mind and your focus to the present moment. All right. And share in the comments what you want to learn about, what will be helpful. I'm going to start another series on perfectionism because I think we all like really need some reminders of how to get unstuck from wanting things to be perfect or wanting to have control over all the time or wanting things to go a certain way for sure. So thanks for being here and I'll see you next week.